This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, everyone. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast. It is the end of March, and we are looking ahead to what I'm hoping is going to be a more sunny April here in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know where you're listening from today, but if you've got blue skies and sunshine, please get out there and enjoy it. I am envious. We have not had much of that here lately, and it definitely impacts my mood, although I do a really good job of manufacturing my own sunshine because, you just have to do that when you live in an area that is predominantly gray most of the year. In fact, I was just made aware of a list of the cloudiest cities in America, and for the longest time, I would have said Seattle, but then I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I thought, no, I think Portland's even cloudier. But in all fairness, neither of those are number one. Do you know what the number one cloudiest city in America happens to be? You might be surprised if you are an American. I certainly was. The cloudiest city in America, the one with the fewest hours of sunshine, is, drumroll please, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had no idea that Pittsburgh or any part of Pennsylvania was as cloudy as it apparently is. Apparently, the jet stream likes to hang out over Pittsburgh and it blocks the sun. So folks living in that city are suffering from lack of sunlight even more than those of us here in the Pacific Northwest. So that's a little side note here, a little piece of trivia. In today's episode, I want to talk with you about the two kinds of money on the internet. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. I'm not talking about cash. I'm not talking about credit cards or places like PayPal or Square or Venmo where we digitally transfer funds from one account to another. I'm talking about the two kinds of money that people earn when they show up to run a business online. And many of you are doing that. Some of you may have been thinking about it. If you've got a side hustle, you're doing it on a part-time basis. I have been doing a lot of work these last few months on branding and thinking about my primary business, the business that underwrites this podcast. And for those of you who don't know, my primary service is working with mid-level or mid-stage independent consultants and coaches to help them create marketing assets that are grounded in authentic and relevant writing. Because if you're not writing to grow your business, you have a writing hobby. That's the truth of it. And I'm going to be putting together a video that goes into more detail about that. But honestly, you don't really need much more than to know that if what you write is not generating leads or cash flow or just a bigger bottom line for you, then you have a writing hobby. You do not write strategically for your business. So I've been doing some deep work in that arena. And of course, I come across other people who write about topics that I'm interested in, including what does it take to create a distinguishable brand in a highly saturated, oversaturated, some would say, marketplace where it gets noisier and more crowded every single day. And a lot of people who hang a shingle out to do their own thing. The first year or 18 months are in that dazed and confused and that honeymoon phase of being a new business owner, and they're excited and they are probably getting some referrals from their warm market. And then reality hits them in the face, and that warm wonderful pipeline of leads is suddenly cold as the Arctic snow. And it's a tough place to be because suddenly, if you were an employee prior to that, you start thinking, maybe I need to go back to the nest. I need to go back to where I'm guaranteed monthly income. Someone takes care of all these other things. And believe me, I've had, as you know, if you've been listening here at PYP for any length of time, I would say at least 85% of the guests that I talk to who are independent consultants, business owners, coaches, have had a period of time during their tenure out on their own when the siren song of employeehood calls them and they think, I don't know if I got this. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of the feast or famine, which is a very, very common cycle for people who are running their own show to go through as far as getting paid. You know, you can land a couple of nice contracts and you settle in and you start delivering on those and you're getting a monthly retainer and you're able to pay your bills and even spoil yourself or your family with a few niceties because, hey, you got some extra cash. And then because you've been so busy delivering on the client engagements, you realize, this is coming to an end and I have nothing in my pipeline. This is a very, very common thing. And one of the activities that all people who are independent, who are freelancing or, again, running a consulting or coaching practice, have to continuously be marketing. The marketing then becomes a way of generating leads, building brand awareness, et cetera, and so forth. So where does the money come into this? Well, again, two kinds of money on the internet when it comes to how you position what it is you do to the world. The first kind of money comes from a more classic direct marketing type of work. And again, I'm presuming that if you're listening to this show, you have an awareness of what a traditional online funnel, a sales funnel, looks like. There's usually on the front end some kind of giveaway, and then you opt in to get whatever that freebie is because it's of interest to you. It's relevant to what you're doing. And then you enter into that person's brand ecosystem, and you're on a list and will start to receive periodic messages that are geared towards an eventual ask. Hey, here's how we can work together. Here's the kind of transformation that I offer. So no mystery here, right? And the way that we consumers are attracted to or pulled into these brand ecosystems is through what's known as direct response marketing. So there's the extreme examples, which is I call it clickbait, where there's a lot of fear mongering going on, fear of loss. Like, hey, if you don't get this now, you're going to be left behind. And there's lots of examples of what I would call, it's almost laughable now, but honestly, I just received one of these in my LinkedIn inbox recently. In fact, I want to read it to you now because it's really, really funny. I'm not going to name names, but this person is using a direct response marketing kind of approach. And in the message, they wrote, I created a short video which shows the #1 survival technique burned out, street savvy CEOs and sales pros are using to overcome anxiety and crush their revenue goals by using this ridiculously simple little black book of futuring. That is the name. I'm going to read that to you again. So this is the direct response marketing speak that I'm referring to. The #1 survival technique burned out, street savvy CEOs and sales pros are using to overcome anxiety and crush their revenue goals by using this ridiculously simple little black book of futuring. Now, I could do an entire podcast episode on deconstructing this particular title of the short video, that if I click reply and type yes, then this person is going to send the link to the training over. This is the kind of thing I've been in the online marketing ecosystem pretty much since I first came online way, way back in 2007, 2008, when things compared to today seem like the dark ages in so many ways. And back then, it was very common for marketers to not give away so much, but sell their ebooks for ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, these poorly put together PDFs with a lot of red copy, that they would make some of the typeface red and giant letters. Really, I mean, I probably have some of these files saved somewhere because I remember collecting some for a while just because I was so downright disgusted by this. I'm like, people are paying $97 for this, $47, but the information about how to build out a sales funnel, how to generate leads, how to build a business on the internet, it was the infancy. It truly was the Wild West. And we're long since gone from those days. And people have caught on, and many people are immediately turned off by, again, these clickbaity, direct marketing types of headlines. The reason people continue to use them, however, is because they do work. For a certain audience, they definitely do work. And every savvy marketer, every savvy business owner has to use some form of this to a point. So even the really good ones, people that you have a lot of respect for, are using direct response marketing tactics in their writing because it's just the way it is. And until there's a complete shift away from it, we're going to continue to see it. And I'm not judging it or saying it's wrong. I've used these. I've become really, really skilled at crafting headlines and writing copy that converts. It's just a skill that I've developed, and it does work. So if you're going down that road, the type of money is going to be coming through a direct response kind of funnel. Now, the other kind of money that you can generate as an online business owner is more of the elusive, hard to describe, but you know it when you see it type. And this is where people are truly showing up 100% fully themselves, authentically, genuinely, and they don't feel a need to rely on what they see are crutches of language manipulation in order to attract people to working with them. Some people call this an art brand. They call it an art brand. I've also seen it described as brand marketing as a general term. So there's the direct response marketing, which has more of that fear and loss associated with it, versus the brand marketing or the art marketing or the art brand, where a person says, you know what, this is who I am. And you're either going to be attracted to working with me because these are the kinds of results that I can help you get, or you're not. And if you're not, that's okay. I can refer you out to some people. I took a course last fall through Seth Godin's educational ecosystem. And in that course, I learned some of these nuances between the direct response and the brand marketing. Even though that's not what it was called, that's what he was doing inside there. My cohort, the other folks that were in with me taking this course, was a very interesting experience because we were left to our own devices for most of the course. In other words, there were prompts that were provided to us, and then we engaged with each other, and then Seth would pop in every now and then, but he has a stable of coaches that work for him and deliver the content, and it was a great experience. I really, really got a lot out of it. And as I look back on that, and I think about what Seth is doing, what he symbolizes, and if you're not familiar with Seth Godin, I'll put a link to his blog in the show notes page. Seth is a prolific writer. That is his content type of choice. He also has a podcast, and he's done videos, but generally speaking, he writes every day, puts something out every single day, and he inspires a lot of people because he has gone up against some of the traditional ways of online marketing and called people out, not by name, but just practices in general. And I can remember in the early days of being online how I struggled with the just ickiness factor of internet marketing speak. I didn't like it. I don't like NLP. I understand there are people who do, and they get trained in it, and that's great. Let me just put it to you this way. I find it somewhat insulting because I feel like we should be able to talk to each other as human beings and not have these personas that are crafted through things like NLP. Again, I'm not knocking NLP. I just choose not to overtly study it and become a practitioner. I would imagine that I've picked up some things over the years just through osmosis and doing the work that I've done. What I'm getting here at, going back to the title of today's episode, which is the 2 kinds of money on the internet. If you're trying to generate a living that allows you the freedom to do what you love with people you like the way you want, then you're going to at some point come up against having to make a decision about which road are you going to go down. You might end up going down a hybrid road where there's some of each, and neither one is better than the other. They are different. I'm of the mind that you want to be as intentional as possible. And that's coming from someone who, in my early days of being my own boss, I didn't know what on earth I was doing. I mean, like everybody, I was fumbling around. I was trying on this. I was trying on that. And I think it's part of the growth process. I think you have to go through it. There is not a hack that you can go from 0 to 60 when you've been one thing and now you want to be another. There's a time continuum in there. And yet you've heard me talk about this too on this show, that the speed of technology creates this illusion for all of us that we can get things a lot faster than the natural order of certain kinds of processes. Now, can you have quantum leaps in your growth as a person? Of course you can. But as my coach has taught me, the quantum leap doesn't happen until you look back on it. So when you're in it, you don't know that you're in it. You can't possibly know that you're experiencing a quantum leap until after you have experienced it. That's one of the crazy things about it is people are like, well, I just want, my quantum leap. I just want to go, I have 1 client and I need 10. Isn't there a hack for that? Can I get that faster? And that's when they fall prey to these gimmicks and these quick fixes, thinking that's going to bring them a steady, consistent, and sustainable income. And it ends up flopping or even worse, damaging their reputation completely. I distinctly remember in 2010 having a conversation with a guy who was pitching me so hard on buying his video production services. And it felt wrong. Everything in me was screaming, don't do it. And so I didn't. And I remember how mad he was. He was downright pissed off because I didn't convert, even though he'd spent all this time explaining to me what video could do for my business, why working with him was the right decision based on his background in Hollywood, et cetera, and so forth. And I just didn't feel right about it. The amount that he was asking was not, to me, he wasn't worth that. Okay. Now, I'm all about charging what you're worth. I absolutely am. You have to. And that's a process that people have to go through on their own. You have to move away from the mentality of either being an hourly worker or being on a salary where there's a cap. Okay. If you have value, if you can get results for people, that is worth something. And it's beyond today's episode for me to go down that side channel, but I'll come back to that in another episode because I think it's important. If we're going to truly play our positions to the best of our abilities, if we're here for a short time in the grand scheme of things, there are certain skills and mindsets that are worth adopting and making permanent. This kind of approach has become apparent to me over the last year when life as we once were living it came to a screeching halt. And we've all gone through varying degrees of adjustment and pivoting. and stepping out of what we once did and stepping into something else. There's just been so much rich experience in the last year, even though for so many people, it just felt like a big drag. Not for me. I look back at the last year and I'm eternally grateful. Not that we had a pandemic, but that we were forced to slow down and really, if you were paying attention, take it as an opportunity to pay attention to your life and ask yourself some of those hard questions. So going back to the business at hand, which is being in business, right? If you are in business and you're a solopreneur, you're running a business as a coach, as a consultant, as a freelancer, you are going to have to be consistently marketing your services. And again, you're going to come to that fork in the road. Are you going to go down the direct response marketing path, or are you going to go down the art brand or the brand marketing path where there isn't so much of that language and you just talk like you talk? I know people who do both. I know people who do one versus the other. And at the end of the day, I think what makes those who are successful is they're consistent, they're persistent, and they don't chase every shiny new object that comes along. They really stay clear on what their big goal is and then do everything they can that can help support achieving that goal. So to wrap things up today, 2 ways of driving leads and then converting those leads into sales on the internet. Two kinds of money. The direct kind of in your face, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to lose out kind of approach, which is perfectly fine. Raising my hand, I have bought programs and worked with people who use that, and it was a fabulous experience. So not all direct marketing is, in that category of the one I shared where it's just so outlandish and so over the top. You see, this is not how real people talk. And then there's the more, again, art brand or brand marketing where you work very hard to do what I do here at PYP, which is, show up, be yourself, and that's what's going to lead you to win at life. And both have their value. Neither one is better than the other. Each can lead to a desired outcome. As you are thinking about moving your business forward, having these 2 ideas firmly in mind and understanding what their differences are can be of value to you. So I hope this helped. If you like this episode, let me know. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I do respond to messages that are authentic and genuine from real people who are reaching out because they say, hey, what you said today on your show really struck a chord with me, or thank you for having that amazing guest. She or he gave me insights into my own life or my business or my career that I hadn't thought about before. So don't be a stranger. Would love to connect. In the meantime, team, you know what to do. Get out there and make it a great day, because it is always a great day to get out there and play your position. This is Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use #PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.